Hello everyone, my name is Aaron Woodman and I want to welcome you to my YouTube channel. In this video, we are going to wrap up this video set series by providing a recap of what we talked about. This video set analyzed the important historical events where disinformation tactics were used to affect certain components of society, why those events happen, and how we can combat disinformation and reduce its influence on society. We talked about the origins of disinformation from ancient history. We talked about propaganda, conspiracy theories, and stereotypes. We talked about fascism. We talked about the origins of Nazi Germany. We talked about active measures that get people to lose confidence in their democratic systems and democratically elected officials. We talked about Russia's interference in the 2016 US presidential election. We talked about disinformation in the media. We talked about disinformation from Donald J. Trump. We talked about the anti-democratic and authoritarian aspects of disinformation. We talked about the big 2020 US presidential election fraud lie. And we talked about how to combat disinformation. Those are all important because to have a civically engaged society, we need to be united in being committed to telling each other the truth about what is going on in the world and not intentionally giving out false information. This allows us to build a sense of community and belonging when we know we can be honest with each other. Let's break down the things we covered in each of the videos in this video set. When we talk about the origins of disinformation from ancient history, we learned that disinformation tactics did not occur in the last few years, but they have been used for thousands of years to control society, gain or maintain power, and manipulate public perception about certain things. Darius I of Persia used exaggerated first-person inscriptions, the Behistun inscription, to portray himself as an unbeatable, divinely chosen leader. This form of propaganda shaped public belief in his favor and reinforced his authority. Chandragupta Maurya and his advisor Kutaya employed concealed warfare by using lies, rumors, and secret agents to manipulate enemy officers' emotions, sow discord, inspire rebellion, and weaken rival kingdoms from within. For propaganda, it is biased messaging used to promote a political agenda. With the invention of the printing press, misleading stories spread more widely and quickly. Broadsides often carried rumors and sensational claims. We talked about the 1475 Trento case where a child named Simon was found dead and Jewish people were falsely accused of ritual murder. Torture confessions and a widely distributed pamphlet fueled anti-Jewish propaganda and prejudice. Another example is Marie Antoinette, where the famous line, "Let them eat cake," was falsely attributed to her long after her death. The lie was accepted because it matched people's anger towards the royal family during widespread poverty. For conspiracy theories, they claim that powerful groups secretly commit harmful acts. They often arise because people seek explanations for frightening or confusing events. In Trento, the body's location near a Jewish home and existing prejudices allow the conspiracy theory to grow. For bad actors using stereotypes as disinformation, racist pseudoscience from figures like John C. Calhoun, Dr. Thomas Hamilton, and Benjamin Moseley falsely claimed that Black people felt less pain or were biologically suited for enslavement. These fabricated scientific statements were used to justify slavery and later discrimination. We also talked about the Great Moon Hoax of 1835, where the New York Sun published fake stories about life on the moon. Because the claims appear to be backed by a scientific journal, the public believed them. The newspaper's popularity grew, showing the probability and widespread impact of fake news. When we talk about fascism, we learn it relies on myth, emotion, and lies to gain and maintain power. Fascist leaders manipulate public perception, exploit uncertainty, and use this information to dismantle democratic institutions. To understand where fascism arises, we looked at Max Weber's framework. There is traditional authority, which is based on long-standing customs, for example, monarchies. There is rational legal authority, which is based on laws and democratic processes. There's charismatic authority, which is based on a powerful, emotionally compelling leader. Fascism emerges from this type, usually with within democracies, when a charismatic leader exploits people's emotions. Benito Mussolini demonstrated how fascists gain power. Italy was a constitutional monarchy when he rose to power. Mussolini exaggerated events, such as falsely claiming a heroic march on Rome, to rewrite reality and appear as a national savior. Fascists claim to fight corruption which they define as impure elements, not actual wrongdoing. They appealed to emotions, insecurity, and national pride while hiding their pursuit of absolute power. When we look at the philosophy of fascism, Russian philosopher Ivan Ilyin argued the task of the government is to maintain order, and the lower and middle classes must be content to remain in their places. He said democracy creates disorder because people strive for advancement. A strongman leader keeps the public entertained, angry, and focused on enemies. Fascism depends on myth, not truth, especially myths about national greatness. Fascist governments must control information and suppress individuality. When World War II happened, Mussolini allied with Adolf Hitler and believed victory would restore Italy's glory. Instead, Italy was defeated. Mussolini was killed by Italians who felt betrayed, and fascism failed because people stopped believing in the myths. While not all myths are harmful, for example, believing in Santa Claus, myths become dangerous when they are used as propaganda to undermine democracy or justify tyranny. Disinformation becomes dangerous when people stop questioning what they hear and accept false information as facts. When we look at the origins of Nazi Germany, it reveals how fascist disinformation tactics affected society. Adolf Hitler rose to power by exploiting old anti-Semitic stereotypes to blame Jews for Germany's problems, using emotional and fear-based messaging rather than logic, learning his power as a speaker and using propaganda to grow the Nazi party, and writing the Kampf, a propaganda manual in prison that outlined how to use the big lie. The propaganda techniques Hitler used were appealing to emotions, repeating simple and memorable messages, creating enemies, especially Jews, and promising national redemption. There was the Nazi propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels, who believed you can transform a nation either by violence or by manipulating the public spirit. The Nazis took power when Hitler gained only a third of the vote. A political deal with Franz von Papen put Hitler in power. And once chancellor, Hitler dismantled democratic institutions and sowed distrust against the press by calling them lying press. At this point, Germans were flooded with anti-Semitic lies. However, during World War II, the Allies defeated Nazi Germany partly through disinformation tactics of their own. Hitler killed himself as defeat became inevitable. The Holocaust was also exposed for disinformation, fueling the killing of millions of Jewish lives. We went through many different active measures bad actors use to erode trust in democracy. There is whataboutism, which is deflecting criticism by pointing to unrelated issues. There is censorship through noise, which is drowning out truth with overwhelming amounts of contradictory or misleading information. There is false balance, which is presenting experts and non-experts as equally credible, leaving the public confused and misinformed on a certain topic. There is a fire hose of falsehood, which is flooding the public with nonstop lies until people give up trying to find the truth. We went over the examples of modern Russia using active measures. After the Soviet Union collapsed, oligarchs took control. Vladimir Putin followed Ilyin's fascist philosophy by identifying enemies, promoting national purity, and presenting himself as the redeemer. Putin revived disinformation tactics to justify authoritarian power and foreign aggression. When it comes to Russia's interference in the 2016 US presidential election, Russia carried out a long-running coordinated disinformation campaign targeting Americans ahead of the 2016 election. Operatives from the Internet Research Agency, IRA, created fake online personas, Facebook groups, and activist pages to mimic real Americans and spread divisive content. Their short-term goal was to help elect Donald J. Trump, whose views aligned with Putin's position on Crimea. Their long-term goal was to weaken Americans' trust in democracy. IRA employees, including Anna Bochevia and Alexandria Krylova, visited the U.S. to research social and cultural divisions. From the translation department in St. Petersburg, hundreds of IRA specialists created pages such as the religious-themed Army of Jesus to build trust before injecting false and emotionally charged political posts. Others posed as African-American activists to discourage Democratic turnout. The IRA also doctored videos and manipulated religious and racial tensions. After Trump won, Putin's advisors claimed Russia had helped him. A political scientist noted that Russia wanted Americans to overestimate its influence to further damage trust in U.S. democracy. Essentially, Russia exploited existing social divisions and America's unfamiliarity with these disinformation tactics to spread anti-democratic narratives. For the media landscape, it once operated as a unified public sphere where Americans shared the same basic facts, aided by the fairness doctrine, which required balanced representation of major political viewpoints. With the rise of alternate media in the 1980s through 1990s and the repeal of the fairness doctrine in 1985, the landscape fragmented. Right-wing media figures such as Rush Limbaugh, Fox News, and later digital platforms introduced highly partisan content that catered to ideological preferences. Barack Obama remarked in 2018 that Americans now live in different universes depending on their media consumption. The digital revolution accelerated this fragmentation through micro-targeting and the 24-hour news cycle. Psychological tendencies such as groupthink, confirmation bias, and cognitive conformity made people more vulnerable to misinformation that aligned with their existing beliefs. Conspiracy theories spread faster and more extreme through figures like Alex Jones and Jerome Corsi, whose claims about white genocide, the deep state, and globalist plots gained large followings. Polls showed a segment of Americans believed these narratives. By the 2016 election, the U.S. public sphere had splintered into echo chambers, which were fertile grounds for Russian election interference, partisan disinformation, and highly polarized political identities. For Donald J. Trump's rise into power, he has repeatedly used false claims, conspiracy theories, and fascist-style tactics to gain and manipulate political power. His major early lies were birtherism and claiming to be a self-made billionaire. For birtherism, Trump promoted the false claim that Barack Obama was born in Kenya, where he used misleading statements and fabricated evidence to cast Obama as illegitimate. Polls showed a significant percentage of voters believed him. For the self-made billionaire claim, Trump portrayed himself as financially independent despite inheriting $413 million and repeatedly relying on questionable business deals, including real estate transactions with Russian oligarchs seeking to launder money. Trump embraced tactics historically associated with fascist movements. 1, glorifying winners and demeaning losers. 2, nostalgia for a mythic great past embodied in MAGA. 3, the leader principle, saying, I alone can fix it. 4, disregarding the rule of law. 5, drain the swamp, a slogan first used by Mussolini. 6, creating an us versus them hierarchies, especially when it comes to targeting immigrants. 7, maintaining loyalty above all else. Trump used an overwhelming volume of false statements, over 16,000 documented in his first 3 years, to distort reality and exhaust the public's ability to discern truth. Trump amplified conspiracy theorists and fringe narratives, such as accusing Ted Cruz's father of involvement with JFK's assassin and retweeting someone who promoted the Pizzagate conspiracy theory. Trump repeatedly used the term fake news to discredit journalists and institutions, echoing the historical term Lügenpresse, lying press, used by the Nazi regime to attack the free press. Disinformation is often used by people who prefer authoritarianism and want to undermine trust in democracy. Historian Richard Hofstadter identified a paranoid style in American politics, small, passionate groups believing in vast conspiracies. Political psychologists Jonathan Haidt and Karen Stender expanded on this by showing that about 1/3 of people worldwide have an authoritarian disposition, which means they prefer sameness, order, and simplicity, and struggle with diversity and change. Disinformation often plays on perceived threats or normative threats to the social order. The examples we talked about are debates about diversity, questioning whether diversity can create cohesion, and using inflammatory rhetoric about immigrants to trigger authoritarian responses. Democracies expand rights and inclusion, but as society grows more diverse, some people become unsettled, and bad actors can exploit this discomfort using normative threats. This can lead to authoritarian uprisings. When it comes to how authoritarian followers accept lies, scholars such as Hannah Arnott and Jennifer Mercika explain that followers of authoritarian leaders often accept or rationalize lies. Lies become tests of loyalty instead of those leaders trying to persuade them on the merits, and those leaders demand compliance by creating an us versus them mentality. When it comes to why people embrace demagogues, research by Oliver Hall, Min Jae Kim, and Ezra Zickerman Sivan, their research shows that some supporters knowingly embrace lies because they believe the lies express a deeper truth about something specific. Examples include birtherism and false claims about immigrants. Disinformation weaponizes identity-based fears, marginalizes groups, and fractures shared reality. Democracy cannot survive without a shared public sphere and a common set of facts. Authoritarian systems emerge when lies replace truth and accountability. When we talk about the big 2020 election fraud lie, it came about through a large-scale disinformation campaign seeking to bring our democracy down. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Trump repeatedly claimed, without evidence, that mail-in ballots were insecure. Experts warn of a red mirage where early results would favor Trump, but the final count would shift towards Biden because of mail-in ballots being counted. On election night, Trump declared victory before the votes were counted. Advisors like Rudy Giuliani encouraged him to falsely claim wins in contested states. Trump and his allies filed 62 lawsuits, all of which failed. Still, in a poll, 77% of Republicans believe the election was stolen shortly after Election Day. As time passed on, "Stop the Steal" became the rallying cry of the January 6th Capitol riot. Historian Timothy Snyder explained that claiming a fair election was stolen is a roadmap for justifying future election manipulation, and casting Trump as a victim empowers supporters to correct the supposed injustice that by taking back what they think was stolen from them. Even though Congress was able to certify Joe Biden as the next president despite the riot happening there, the impact was still felt across the country. This election fraud lie fueled political violence, undermined trust in elections, pressured lawmakers to restrict voting access, and deepened national division. Now that we know the disinformation history and tactics, we still have power as citizens to combat disinformation. For our online behavior, here is what we can do. Recognize fake accounts, bots, trolls, and sock puppet accounts. Make sure the identity of an online account is authentic. Beware of accounts mimicking reputable brands. Watch for manipulated real content such as edited videos. Also, do not share questionable information if you are unsure if it is true. To improve our education against disinformation, we need to better understand how images, words, and statistics can deceive people, how propaganda works, and how to spot manipulation early. The goal is to create responsible and informed citizens. We need to support good journalism by subscribing to credible investigative outlets, supporting local news outlets, engaging with and amplifying quality journalism, and not canceling subscriptions over disagreeing with an article, but instead writing to the editors instead. We also need to make sure current and future journalists are verifying any claims given to them about a topic instead of just repeating what a politician says, so journalists do not amplify any lies given to them. We need to avoid falling for logical traps. These include false equivalence, appearing to balance two unequal claims, appeals to emotion designed to manipulate fear or security, whataboutism evades questions by diverting attention, and constant spectacle overwhelms people with confusion so they stop seeking the truth. We need to believe in the truth about information we hear about and not only seek out information that feels comfortable to us. As historian Timothy Snyder warned, people submit to tyranny when they ignore the difference between what feels good and what is factually true. Essentially, believing in the truth allows us to stand up to bad actors who want to force us to believe in false narratives. We can use George Lakoff's truth sandwich method to disprove false narratives by starting with the truth, briefly explaining the lie without repeating its framing, and reaffirm the truth. This prevents us from amplifying false information. We need institutions because they are essential for maintaining our democracy. We can use courts, laws, and established processes to hold bad actors accountable for spreading disinformation. For example, Alex Jones lost the Sandy Hook defamation case when the families of the victims sued him for spreading disinformation about them that negatively affected their reputations. We need to regulate social media ads not for their opinions, but for ensuring their facts are correct. This involves clarifying Section 230 to make it clear that when social media platforms accept money to promote an ad, the ad must have its facts correct so the social media platform is not purposefully amplifying any lies. We need to strengthen the public sphere by using rational arguments, allowing anyone who wants to participate to engage with the conversation, and make it an open marketplace for different ideas. We need to strengthen our democracy with more democracy by voting in all elections, volunteering in elections, joining civic organizations, meeting with decision makers, running for public office, or supporting someone you like who is running for public office. Remember, democracy survives only when citizens participate, defend the truth, and resist disinformation. Those are all of the things we talked about in this video set. To close things out, we all need to be united in not repeating history when it comes to letting disinformation control how we operate as a society and how we perceive people. So many people have died, had their reputations ruined, or became disconnected and divided because bad actors exploited our emotions, biases, and lack of knowledge of something to get what they want. As we have seen, bad actors want to keep us static or move us back from any progress we made as a society, want us to be divided, and want us to blindly follow everything they say. But we do not have to fall for the disinformation tactics. When we use our critical thinking skills to analyze the claims being made towards us, we see if the disinformation is actually true or false. No matter who you are or any professional title you hold for yourself, we all have a responsibility and obligation to tell the truth to each other and hold ourselves accountable for saying any false information. We need to create, distribute, and consume information that allows us to build a sense of community and belonging everywhere we go because it helps us become more civically engaged as a society. This concludes the video set on the history of disinformation. Thank you so much for watching this video set. I hope you enjoyed it and it gave you the guidance to help you navigate any disinformation tactics someone could use on you. If you're interested in rewatching any of these videos, I have a playlist on my YouTube channel you can click on to see these videos again. If you also have not seen any of my videos from previous video sets, they are also in my playlist section on my channel too. I will be releasing a video set soon that goes in depth with another topic in my civic engagement curriculum, Becoming the Changemaker, a guide to making positive change in society. Until then, please like this video, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and turn on the post notifications so you will be notified when I post my next video. I appreciate your support. Remember, you are powerful, you are capable, and you are the changemaker our society needs. Thank you so much for watching this video. I will see you soon.